Hey everyone, I'm back, and today we're going to be talking about Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2. And this movie came out in 2000, directed by Joe Berlinger, if I pronounced that correctly, and it's a sequel to the Blair Witch Project and came out before Blair Witch. And this was the only Blair Witch movie that I have never seen before. And I've seen it, and it was awful. It was terrible. I hated it. It was painful to sit through, despite being an hour and a half. The pacing is like really slow, and it was a genuinely frustrating experience. Lots of bad performances, and I just couldn't believe most of these actors playing characters because they were just so distracting. And I didn't like any of the music in this movie. I just found it to be very distracting and just ruined every scene that it was in, and the editing in this movie was obnoxious, and there's often times where it just distracts from the story and just adds nothing to how it's filmed. And also there are points where the framing and cinematography are like bad at points. Like if you think the Blair Witch Project or any found footage movie looks terrible in terms of how things are presented visually, like there are times where I can say, this is something else. Like, this is just incomprehensible. Like, you can barely make out what's going on. And it's too close, so you can't make out what is going on in the frame. And it's just horribly done. And you can barely understand, like, what we're supposed to be focusing on. Because it's just not clear what we're supposed to be focusing on. And the story is just a mess and is completely underdeveloped, and it's just so random and doesn't make any sense. And that kind of works a bit better in a found footage movie where things are a bit more mysterious and you don't quite know what's going on. And anything that does happen, like, it kind of makes sense because it's subtle and there were like some build-ups to it, and it kind of makes sense, and there's an eventual payoff to at least the good found footage movies that I've seen, like the Blair Witch Project being one of them. Like, it has good payoffs, and things are well set up, and you are interested to see where things are going, because the movie does a good job at establishing things very well. And that's one thing that the Blair Witch Project does very well, is to have its characters be very realistic, and you can get behind them somewhat. Whereas in this movie, I don't like any of these characters. I cannot get behind one character in this movie. They're all idiots. I find them to be completely unlikable, and they just want to explore the Blair Witch Project phenomenon. And this movie kind of takes place in our own universe, like outside of the movie's universe. The movie's universe being the Blair Witch Project, like that's a movie that exists inside this movie. It's a little complicated to describe it, but once you kind of understand it, it makes a bit more sense. And it's just about these characters exploring the location where the Blair Witch Project was shot in and looking through all that. And I guess there's something there, but unfortunately, there just isn't really much in terms of what the movie explores. And with this movie coming out just a year after the Blair Witch Project, it's very clear that this movie was rushed and wanted to be made very fast, and I'm pretty sure that was the intent behind it. And the director was trying to make something else, and the studio just wouldn't let him. And unfortunately, all we have left is just a movie that doesn't really give you any satisfying scene or interesting scene. And there's not one scene in this movie that gives you more information on how the Blair Witch operates, or anything that has to do with what you would want to see. Like, you would watch a sequel to get more of what you liked about the first movie, and this movie just does not deliver on that. And I do also kind of feel as though making a sequel is inherently a bad idea, because you kind of are stepping into territory that could just explain too much and just make what was scary about the first movie not scary anymore. But I don't really feel as though this movie does that, but rather it just adds things that just don't make any sense, and it just feels like any random bad horror movie that you could find at the time period and be like, well, this is another horror movie that people forgot, and it just feels so dated and of its time. And the Blair Witch Project, it kind of feels a bit more timeless in a sense because with it having no musical score and just not having a lot of what you would expect in any non-found footage movie. I feel as though that adds to that movie's benefit, whereas in this, there's just nothing that's added to this movie that makes it scary or interesting. I wasn't scared by anything, and it was pretty boring for me. And the only parts that were entertaining for me were parts that were either laughably bad, dumb, and or frustrating that I just couldn't believe my eyes in terms of what I was seeing. This movie is also a film that tries to have some subtlety and foreshadowing in it, but they just completely fail at doing that, and there's just no real payoff to anything in this movie. Like, why is the one character able to know where things are and to just is able to see things like that's never expanded on, or you don't really get any big payoff to that. It's just in the movie, it just kind of happens, and it's never once indulged in, and everything is just glossed over. And one other thing that I wanted to mention in terms of how it was made technically, and I don't remember this being an issue with the Blair Witch Project, but this is one of those movies where it's really loud in the loud scenes and really quiet in the not loud scenes, and I just kept having to adjust my volume throughout this movie, which was really annoying. And the only thing that I kind of liked about this movie was the opening scene, and there were no like characters or really. There was just like people talking about the Blair Witch Project and how it was such a phenomenon. And I was like, okay, this is kind of interesting. There's the idea here. But immediately after that, we were just introduced to a bunch of crap that I wanted to turn off. And I'm just kind of sick of, to be honest. And I wasn't really engaged with much in this film. So skip this maybe if you ever come across it. It's not good. It's not entertaining. There's nothing really salvageable about it. And I guess you could get worse than this, but that's going to be very impressive to me if you make a movie worse than this. So with all that being said, I'm going to give Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2, a 2 out of 10. And I do want to talk about Blair Witch just for a moment, even though I have already reviewed it. I do want to revisit the movie when my channel turns 10 years old after like the first video that I've uploaded is what I mean. And I think that'll be fun and just like see how it aged and go through all the behind the scenes and special features of the movie. And I was also curious as to like what they were going to do with this property at some point, because I was thinking like after 7 years we haven't really gotten much from Blair Witch, like this IP, and I was thinking like what are we going to do next with this project. And apparently a remake is in the works, possibly, so we'll see how that goes. But I would watch more of this if you like just the Blair Witch and want to see where they go with it. Even though none of it's good, I am curious to see where they go at the very least. So it's got that going for it. All I can say is I hope they just don't butcher the original and just completely miss the point of what made it work. Unlike these other two movies that just completely failed at. Thank you for watching my videos as always. If you enjoyed this review, be sure to leave a like and comment down below you thought of Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2, and my social media links. They will all be in the description, so follow me there. And last but not least, subscribe to be a part of Foley Nation, and I'll see you when I get my next review up, and that is going to be for Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. So look forward to that, but until I get that up, thank you for watching and have a great day.